What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to try to take this R9 module and all these R9 receivers and convert them to ELRS. Now there's a lot of steps to follow and I've already done all this, so I'm going to go back and recap all the proper steps in the proper order to hopefully save you guys from making the same mistakes that I made. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright guys, thanks for hanging around. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to check to be sure that we're running the latest version in our radio. I'm using the QX7, it's an old radio, but you still have to have the proper updated firmware. So from the main menu here, we're going to long press the menu button and then we're going to page until you get to the version. As you can see, I'm running 2.3.14. That is the latest version. I was running 2.2, so I had to update this, but I didn't do it till very far into the process and it caused me problems. If you're not running the latest version, it will not talk to the module properly once you have that flash. So let's go to the computer. I'm going to show you how to do this the easiest way to update your firmware. Okay, to get the latest version of OpenTX, what you want to do is open up OpenTX Companion. You're going to click on File. Come down to download. It says latest download 2.3.14. What you're going to do is hit download firmware. It's going to pop up with that. What you want to do is take that file and save it to your firmware folder on your SD card. Okay, now that you've copied that file to the firmware folder on your SD card, what you want to do, put the SD card back in your radio and you're going to put it in bootloader mode. You're going to hold these trim tabs in, quickly press the power button, and now it says bootloader mode. So you're just going to click on write firmware. It's going to actually pop up that same file that you just loaded onto your SD card. You're going to click that. It's going to go ahead and do an update. When it gets done, more than likely you're going to have a SD card error the next time you reboot it. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Okay, to fix the SD card error when you boot your radio, simply take your SD card out of your radio, plug it into your SD slot on your computer, open it up, and right here you're going to see this text file. You're going to double click it. It's going to open it up in Notepad. This will just be your version. What you're going to do is just simply change it to the version you just put in, which is 2.3V0038. Just change it to that exactly like you see it. Click on File and Save. And then anyway, that will change that back. Next time you boot up, you will not have an SD card error. Alright, this is a good time to go ahead and create a new model. If you don't know how to do that, what you're going to do is find an existing model. I'm using my Crossfire model because everything is set up for Crossfire. You can actually run your ELRS off an existing Crossfire model setup. But I decided to go ahead and just create a new one called ELRS. If you don't know how to create a new model, you simply click on an existing model and come down and hit copy. Then what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down. You can see where it's pulled it down here. It's going to be an exact copy. Just drop it there, then you're going to select it, and then all you want to do here is go over to your setup, click on that, and you can change that to ELRS. Okay, once you've created your ELRS model, you do have to turn your internal module off. Now if you copied it from a Crossfire setup, it's already going to be right, but let's just double check it. So what you want to do is have your ELRS model set up or selected. You're going to click page and come down to setup. I'm just going to scroll up, it's a lot quicker. And as you can see right here, I have internal module turned off, and we want to make sure our external module is set to Crossfire. Okay, lastly, if you're running a QX7, you're going to need to lower your baud rate. So you're going to just long press the menu button and you're going to scroll over until you get to hardware right there. You're going to scroll down almost to the very bottom. I think it is the very bottom. Right there. You're going to set that baud rate to 115200, and I think that only applies to the QX7, and you also want to turn that ADC filter off. Okay, one last thing to note about the radio before we get off of that is if you're running the QX7, you will have to do a converter mod. I'll link a good video to that through GetFPV down in the description below. You can follow that. It's pretty easy, but it's a little board that you have to buy and put in the radio. Do have to take it apart. It's pretty easy soldering. This one's already been done. Same thing if you were running Crossfire. You have to do the exact same mod if you're running QX7. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the module. There is a modification you have to do it as well, and that is soldering a resistor in here. I did record some video of that while I was doing it, so let's go ahead and show you that right now. This is your resistor right here. It's going to solder up to that one leg on the voltage regulator. And plus, while we're talking about it, I did shave just a little bit of this circuit board out with a razor blade, just a little bit of relief, so I could wrap that wire around that nice and snug, and that way when I pop it back in the case won't hit that leg on the resistor. And then of course it just goes over to that capacitor right on the end of that. I think that's C19. I just want to show you this real quick before I put it back together. As you can see, that resistor goes right around that board, and the case is right next to the board. That's why I shaved that little bit of that printed circuit board away, so to have just a little bit of relief so that wire won't interfere. So if you don't do that, it might be kind of a tight fit. It may not even fit at all. We are ready to start doing some building and flashing. Now what you want to do is navigate to the ExpressLRS 2.0 page. I will leave a link in the description for this. So keep this page up the entire time, because you're going to be going back and forth, because over here on the left, as you can see, it's pretty much a list in the order that you need to do everything. I'm pretty much just following this list. So what we want to do is do the installing configurator from this page. So we're going to click install configurator, and if you go down here, right here is download the ExpressLRS Configurator. Alright, now that we have the configurator downloaded, we're going to move on to TX modules. As you can see over here on the left, we're just going to keep going straight down. So we've already prepared the radio. That would have been the next step. We've done all the radio work. Now flashing TX models. Now we're specifically working on the R9, so we're going to come down here to flashing FrSky R9 module. Click on that. And if you scroll down right here, copy R9M ELRS BL onto the SD card of your radio in the firmware folder. So what we're going to do is just click on that. It's going to load it. Come over here to your little folder, click on that, take that file right there and copy it to the firmware folder on the SD card. Now that you've loaded the bootloader firmware onto your SD card in the firmware folder, now we need to flash it to the module. So you're going to long press the menu button, page to the SD card, come down to firmware, click on that. Now I have a whole bunch of files in here. What you want to do is find the R9M ELRS BL for bootloader. Long press that, flash external module, and it's going to go ahead and take off. Next, you want to go ahead and open up the configurator that we just previously downloaded. Now, one thing you're going to see right off the bat is this download Lua script. You can go ahead and click on that right now. Take this file right here. You're going to save it to your SD card. I'll show you where to put it. Okay, once you've saved your Lua script, take your SD card out of your radio, put it in your computer, and create a directory called ELRS. Now what I did is, as you can see here, I created a folder called ELRS. So on the computer, I simply went to that folder and then dropped that file right into that folder. So once you have that in there, then you can long press, hit execute, and then you can access your Lua script. Alright, back to the configurator. Now it is time to build our firmware version for our R9 module. So come down here, it should already be defaulted to 2.2.0, which is the latest version. And of course we're doing the FrSky R9 module and FrSky TX R9M. Make sure you get this right, because there is a receiver option in here as well. R9mm and Mini, do not select that yet. We're doing the module. Alright, we're also going to select stock BL. That is bootloader. That means we're going to flash this using the bootloader, not the ST link. So make sure stock BL is selected. Standard mode, select your regulatory domain. In my case it's regulatory, or it's FCC 915. Obviously just select yours. And your binding phrase, think of something very familiar, whatever you like, and put that in there. You're going to use the exact same binding phrase when you flash your receivers, so do not forget it. And unlock high power is already selected. Now we're going to click build, not build and flash, because if you hit build and flash, it's assuming you're trying to use a ST link right here. So we just want to build it, and then we're going to copy the file onto our SD card. Alright, it's done building. There's your file right here. Take that file, copy it to your SD card in your firmware folder. Now that we've got the file, the version file for the module loaded onto our firmware folder in our SD card, put the SD card back into your radio, long press the menu, and then page over to your SD card. You're going to come down to firmware, click on that, and we are looking for FrSky TX R9M 2.2.0 ELRS. That is what we just loaded into our SD card firmware folder. Now you're going to long press it, and you want to flash external ELRS, and it should take off. Whew, break time. Okay, we are ready to move on to flashing the bootloader onto the receiver. So we're back on the ExpressLRS page. Like I said, leave this page up. You're going to be going back and forth. So down here under receivers, like I said, we're just moving straight down this list. So receivers, flashing bootloader. Click on that, and it's going to give you all the information you need here. So you have the R9mm and Mini. That's what I'm using. Now you do have some other options, but we're using the MM and Mini. I'm going to click on that bootloader. And then when it gets through loading the file, I'm going to click on the file, and there's your file. Again, just like we've been doing, take that file, and what you can do is just simply copy that to your firmware folder on your SD card. It's getting a little repetitive, I know. Okay, we got the bootloader loaded onto our firmware folder. Just hang on to that for right now, but first we have to build a cable that we can use and solder to the receiver, plug it into our smart port on the back of our radio so we can actually flash that bootloader to the receiver. This is where it starts getting a little hairy, but hang in there, guys. Now we are down here at the flashing the bootloader. We've already done that. On that same page, scroll down, here's the wiring diagram that you're going to make a cable. I just used a small servo cable. I'll show you that in just a minute, but this is the wiring diagram. R9MM and Mini, this is what I'm using. So make sure you have the receiver in the proper orientation, just like it shows in the picture, and positive, negative, and that's your link right there. And then you're going to go into a servo connector, and that's going to plug into the bottom 3 ports on your JR module bay. So let's go ahead and make that up and get these flashed. Okay guys, as you can see, I've got the receiver. This is a brand new receiver, R9mm. Got it wired up to a servo lead, plugged into the smart port. You can take note of the wiring. So that's ready to go. I've got power on it because I do have a flashing little red light here. Yeah, you can see that. Alright, so R9mm ELRS BL for bootloader. So we're going to flash to external module, and hopefully, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to do this one and go ahead and do the rest of them. Might as well, got everything hooked up. Okay, the next thing to do is to prepare the receiver for pass-through flashing, which simply means that we're going to wire it up to a quad. So as I said, we've been following these steps straight down the left side over here. Okay, we just did flashing the bootloader. Now we're going to prepare it for pass-through flashing by wiring it up to a quad. Pay attention here, guys. This top pad on the left, that is your RX. It will go to the TX on the flight controller. The second one down, that is your TX. Shows it right here. That will go to RX on your flight controller. Make sure you're using a spare UART. If you don't know if you have a spare UART, hook your quad up to Betaflight and see what spare UART you have. Alright, now that we have the receiver wired up to your quad, we want to plug the quad up to Betaflight. We need to check a few things first before we flash the pass-through. So go to your ports tab. Make sure you have the correct UART. Okay, mine's UART 3, serial RX, UART 3. Save and reboot. Next, go to Configuration tab. We want to scroll down to the receiver section. Serial base receiver and crossfire. Then scroll down to telemetry. Make sure that's turned on. And save and reboot. Then you want to go to the receivers tab and make sure your RSSI channel is disabled. If you had an aux channel selected, make sure it's disabled save that, don't forget. And then go to your CLI. You're going to type get serial, enter. And what we don't want to do is check two things. Serial RX right here, off. Make sure it's off. If it's not, change it to off. Don't forget to type save and hit enter. And serial RX half duplex, make sure that is off as well. If it's not, change it to off. Type save, hit enter. That should be all you need to do in Betaflight for right now. Okay, we're back on the configurator here, guys. Before we try to do our pass-through flashing, be sure you've closed out Betaflight, unplug your USB cable from your quad, and then replug it back in just to be sure we freed up that COM port. We don't want any conflicts. So on the configurator screen, we're going to make sure we still have the newest release selected. FrSky R9 is device category. The device will now be the receiver. In my case, it's the RX R9mm. Okay, once you select that, you're going to have some different options. Now this option, flashing method, we're going to be using Betaflight pass-through. And you're going to come down to your regulatory domain. Make sure you select the same one that you did for flashing the module. In my case, FCC 915. Here's your binding phrase. Make sure you put the same one in that you did for the module. And then right here, I messed this up the first time I did it. So I hope you don't, but do not check either one of these. I had this one checked, found out later that's not supposed to be checked. So make sure these are not checked. And then of course your COM port, that's going to be the COM port that more than likely Betaflight connects to. It should auto-populate, select that COM port. Next we're going to hit build and flash. What it's going to do is compile the version, and when it gets ready to flash it, it's going to give you a retry. It's going to say retry, and you have 10 retries to plug your battery into your quad. So let's try to do that while I'm holding a camera. All right, it is now building the firmware. All right, now it says retry. You have 10 tries to get it right. Okay, camera's back up here. Now, I got it plugged in before the 10th retry. The battery is plugged into the quad, and it is proceeding with the flashing. So it just flashed that receiver through the flight controller, which makes it so much easier. All right, we are moving on to the next step. Okay, we are on the bench. Everything is done. All we have to do now is just test it. So let's go ahead and turn the radio on. Pretty cool startup tunes. As you can see, we've got the quad plugged into the computer. Definitely seeing that. But we do need to plug the quad into it with a battery. All right, we're good to go there. And I can test it by just doing my beeper. All right, we are definitely connected. We can verify that by going to the receiver tab. Let's move some sticks around. Everything looks good. We're definitely connected. Okay, now, one thing you definitely need to know. Go to your modes tab right here on your arm for your arming. Arming has to be on aux 1, and it has to be in the high position. I always arm in the low. I have 25 quads all set up in the low position, so that's going to be hard to get used to. My muscle memory wants me to, flip the switch one way, but now I got to flip it the other way. So that's just something to note, guys. So if you already have yours arming in the high position, you are good to go, but double check your modes. All right, got the props off, and let's go ahead and try to arm it. Okay, she's ready to go. All right, guys, if you're still with me, I really appreciate it. Guys, this video took quite a while to put together. I spent the entire day actually trying to do this, and spent another day going back and making this video just so I could get every step documented for anybody else that wanted to try this. So if you'll return the favor by giving me a thumbs up, maybe even subscribe, but most importantly, leave me a comment below. I really appreciate that. Let me know who you are, if this helped you. That really does mean a lot. I like interacting, and I will definitely reply to your comment as well. So anyway, guys, that's it. I hope you have a great day. God bless. See you in the next one.